This is our second lecture on early Rome. Early Rome, we talked about the geography very briefly of ancient Rome, and we talked about some of the people that influenced the Romans, and we also talked about the fact that the Roman people were tired of being ruled by the Etruscans, and they kicked them out, and they start a democracy called a republic. This is very, very important for you to know. The Romans have a democracy that our founding fathers, they wanted to copy certain parts of it. Really, the power rests with the people. Citizenship with voting rights, though, is only granted to free-born male citizens. Remember, in the last lecture we talked about the values of the Romans, and they value men and male dominance, and women are treated as second-class citizens, and we're going to explore that a lot more in the unit of Rome, how women are treated, how slaves are treated, because they're not treated much differently. Okay, we talked about the fact that the Romans create a democracy, and a lot of the democratic things that happen here in the Forum. And this is a recreation, a model recreation of the Forum, but it's pretty close to what it really looked like. And you can see just how fancy this is. Imagine being a person in this area. You can see people down here walking around, very tiny. This is all marble. This is all marble, and this is where all the government actions are going to take place in ancient Rome. This is where the area where the emperor is going to eventually end up when they get to that point. Okay. And this is what the Forum looks like today. I've been there. It's really, really neat to walk around and see all the ruins of this great civilization. Alright, let's talk about the people of Rome. The very important part of the history of Rome that you need to understand is that they have different social classes. How society is made up in Rome is kind of special, because we don't see it in a lot of other civilizations. Patricians are wealthy landowners who hold most of the power of Rome, and they hold that power through something called the Senate. They are considered descendants of the original settlers of Rome, when it was just a village of small huts. So how you become a patrician is you're born a patrician, and it's really just because of your family name. And that's really what it comes down to. You don't have to do anything. You're already wealthy. You inherit your wealth. But 95% of people are plebeians. And plebeians are common farmers, artisans, merchants, and the majority of the population. One more thing you'll notice here: slaves. Slaves make up society. They're kind of the bottom of society, and their population is going to grow larger and larger and larger. There's going to be more and more slaves as Rome conquers more territory. So you have those three parts of society, and you also can throw women in there because they're kind of separate from the rest of society. They're treated differently. Patricians are they control everything, and they mistreat the plebeians for a long time. The only type of government group is the Senate, and the Senate votes on laws that benefit the patricians, and the plebeians get upset about it, and they They basically say, we're going to walk out, we're going to leave. We're going to leave Rome, and you guys are on your own, because guess what? The plebeians make up not just the common farmers, but they're also the majority of the army, and they say, we're going to just walk out, and when other civilizations invade, you guys are on your own. Remember, they're 95% of the population. So finally, the patricians, they give in. We call this revolt of plebeians the conflict of orders. It's like a strike. It's like if the teachers went on strike because they were mistreated by, you know, the principals. That'd be kind of, just think of it that way. But one of the results of these strikes is a system of laws called the 12 Tables. Because before the 12 Tables existed, the only people that knew the laws were the patricians. So they could arrest plebeians and say, you broke the law. And if plebeians say, we don't know the law, they say, well, we do, and you broke it. You can think about how this could be to the advantage of the patricians. Okay, so we get the 12 Tables, and that's a set of written laws. And written laws are one of the key features of a civilization. You have to have written laws. Okay, so this is going to make Rome stronger. And they did this because of the conflict of orders, and they did this for the plebeians. Okay, they also, because of the conflict of orders, say, okay, we have the Senate. Well, you guys can have something called the tribune. And the tribune is elected representatives, okay, because we are a democracy and we are a republic. They are elected representatives who protect the rights of the plebeians, and they have a lot of power, almost as much power as the Senate. So now you have a group of representatives from the patrician class and a group of representatives from the plebeian class. Okay. At the top of the government are consuls, and consuls are like your chief executive. They're like the president, but there's two of them. There's two consuls. And eventually it's going to end up, because of the conflict of orders, one consul is a patrician and one is a plebeian. And that way they see themselves as equal. And they both have veto power over the other one. They have to agree. And they only serve for 1 year. Okay, so they are like the commander-in-chief of the army, and they direct the government. They're the chief executive. They're like the president. All right, in times of crisis, let's say that the Romans are being attacked. They go from a democracy to a dictatorship. They can appoint a leader with absolute power. He's a dictator. He makes laws. He controls the army. He controls everything. There is no Senate. There is no tribune. He controls everything. But he only gets to control it for 6 months. And remind me in class to talk to you about Cincinnatus and George Washington, because there's a connection here to George Washington. The way that the Romans have so much power is because of their legions, and that's their military units. And they're made up of about 5,000 soldiers each, and they have lots of legions. So they use it. It's a very disciplined army. It's very controlled, and they're going to use their army to conquer territories. They start with the Italian Peninsula. They go from the center of the Italian Peninsula, and they grow and they start conquering the rest of the Italian Peninsula, all the other Latin-speaking people. All right, and they don't have to worry about people invading them right now because of their geography. So the Romans are going to gain more and more territory. They start with the Italian Peninsula. And once they've conquered the Italian Peninsula, then they start looking and saying, okay, who else is in our way? Who else is in our way? And very quickly, this is just showing how their government is set up early on. You have two consuls at the top. You have senators. You have tribunes. You have citizen assemblies, which are just like small groups. They can pass certain laws, but of course everything has to go through the Senate and the tribune. Okay, and you can notice that there's 300 senators. Who's got the most power? Okay, and we'll talk more about that. We will. Let's talk about this real quickly. The Roman power expands as they conquer the Italian peninsula. They get more and more people absorbed into their growing territory, and some people are accepted as citizens, but a lot of people are just there. They become part of the Roman Republic, and they're treated as conquered people. Some of them are turned into slaves, and some of them are drafted into the Roman army. But the Romans usually leave the people that they conquer alone for the most part. They tax them and they make them serve in the army. Eventually, Rome is going to look at Carthage, which is a powerful city in North Africa, and the Carthaginian people as their stepping stone into conquering all the Mediterranean. So that's what we'll talk about with the next lecture.